Arthur had been calling the same disconnected number for decades, his heart refusing to let go of the past. It had been Eleanor's number, the woman he loved, the one who vanished without a trace so many years ago. He never expected an answer. It was just a ritual, a desperate attempt to feel close to her, to imagine she was still somewhere out there. But then, one evening, the impossible happened. The phone rang, someone picked up, and the voice on the other end made his heart stop. Who had answered? How was this possible after all these years? As Arthur listened, the truth unraveled, and what he discovered changed everything he thought he knew. The old rotary phone sat on the worn wooden table, its cord tangled from years of use. Every evening, without fail, Arthur would sit down, pick up the receiver, and dial a number 1 that hadn't worked in decades. The dial spun, the clicking sound filling the quiet room, and then nothing. Just silence. He would hold the phone to his ear, as if waiting, hoping. And then, after a few seconds, he would place it back down with a sigh, his tired eyes drifting to the framed photo beside him. It was of a young woman with a radiant smile, her dark curls framing her delicate face. The name engraved on the frame read, Eleanor 1952. Arthur had been making this call for nearly 50 years. It had started as a habit, a desperate attempt to hold on to something that had long since slipped away. Eleanor had been the love of his life, and when she left, vanished without explanation, Arthur had refused to believe she was truly gone. Her number had been disconnected not long after, but he still called, just in case. People in the small town had grown used to seeing him around, an old man with silver hair and kind eyes, always carrying a bouquet of daisies, the flowers Eleanor had loved. But no one ever asked about the phone calls. Maybe they thought it was just another one of his routines, like visiting the park bench where they used to sit or stopping by the little bakery where she once worked. Until one night, something changed. Arthur dialed the number, expecting the usual silence, but instead, after the usual clicks and static, there was a soft click in a voice. Hello? Arthur's breath caught in his throat. His hands shook. He hadn't heard that voice in so long, yet it was unmistakable. Eleanor? He whispered, his heart pounding. There was silence on the other end. Then, a hesitant response. Who is this? His grip on the phone tightened. It's me, Arthur. Another pause, then a small gasp. Arthur? He felt tears welling in his eyes. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was here, he didn't know what to say. I've been calling for years. I didn't think anyone would ever answer. The voice trembled. I never thought you would still be calling. Arthur shut his eyes, emotions flooding through him. Where did you go, Eleanor? Why did you leave? The line crackled, and for a moment he feared she would disappear again. But then she spoke. I never wanted to leave, Arthur. I had no choice. His chest ached. Tell me, please. A deep breath. Then, her voice heavy with sorrow. That night, the night I was supposed to meet you, my father found your letters. He was furious. He said I was ruining my life, that I couldn't be with you. He took me away, Arthur. He sent me to a place where I couldn't reach you. By the time I got back, I thought it was too late. Arthur's hands trembled. Too late. Eleanor, I never stopped waiting for you. I thought something had happened. I searched everywhere. I called this number every night. A soft sob came through the receiver. I didn't know. I was so afraid. I thought you had moved on. Arthur swallowed the lump in his throat. I could never move on from you. Silence stretched between them, filled with all the years they had lost. Finally, Eleanor spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you still go to the bench in the park? He let out a shaky breath. Every Sunday. I go there too, she said. I always sit at the other side, watching, but I never had the courage to come close. Arthur closed his eyes. All this time, she had been near. Will you be there this Sunday? He asked, voice full of hope. A pause, then a soft, tearful laugh. "I wouldn't miss it." And for the first time in 50 years, Arthur hung up the phone with a heart full of something he thought he had lost forever: hope. Arthur sat frozen in his chair, long after the call had ended, his heart hammering in his chest. His old hands, worn with age and time, still gripped the receiver, as if afraid that letting go would erase what had just happened. Eleanor. She was alive. She had never truly left, at least not by choice. And all this time, she had been just as lost as he was, caught in the web of fate that had stolen their years together. Arthur ran a trembling hand through his silver hair. It was impossible to comprehend 50 years of unanswered calls, of empty hope, of staring at her old photograph, wondering where she had gone, and now she had been just a breath away. Sitting on the same park bench where he had spent countless Sundays, mourning her absence. The thought made his chest tighten. How many times had he sat there, lost in his memories, while she had been only a few steps away? Had they passed each other on the street without realizing it? Had they stood in line at the same grocery store, mere moments from recognition? The weight of those lost years pressed heavily on him. For so long, he had lived with the ghost of Eleanor, the idea of her, frozen in time. But she wasn't a memory. She was real. She was out there. And she was waiting for him. That Sunday, Arthur woke earlier than usual. He dressed with special care, choosing the same wool coat he used to wear when they were young. He picked out a fresh bouquet of daisies, her favorite. His fingers trembled as he smoothed out the creases in his shirt. He felt like a young man again, nervous, full of anticipation. As he made his way to the park, the world seemed different, brighter, lighter. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves, and the golden sunlight stretched over the pavement like an old friend welcoming him home. When he arrived, his breath caught in his throat. There she was. Eleanor sat on the far end of the bench, just as she had said she would. Her dark curls had turned silver, her delicate hands now marked by time. But she was still Eleanor. Still, the woman he had loved every single day of his life. She looked up, and their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. The world around them faded, the rustling leaves, the passing footsteps, the distant laughter of children playing. None of it mattered. Arthur took a step forward, then another. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes as she rose slowly, hesitantly, as if afraid he would vanish before her. But he didn't. He